Have you ever noticed how strange high blood pressure really is? It is one of the most dangerous problems in the body, and yet most of the time it does not announce itself like danger. It does not kick the door open. It does not always give you a dramatic warning. Very often it just sits there, quietly pressing against the inner walls of your arteries day after day, year after year, while you feel completely normal. And if you're over 60, that matters even more. Because after 60, the odds shift. Your blood vessels change, your arteries get stiffer. The top number on your blood pressure, the systolic number, often rises even when the bottom number does not rise as much. In the United States, more than 7 out of 10 adults age 60 and older have hypertension. Think about that for a second. That means this is not some niche health issue affecting a tiny corner of the population. It is one of the most common physical realities of aging. Now, I want to be careful right from the start because this is where a lot of videos become unhelpful. This is not going to be one of those videos where every headache suddenly means your blood pressure is dangerously high. That is not how biology works, and it is not responsible to talk that way. What I want to do today is something much more useful. I want to show you why high blood pressure is called the silent killer, why it becomes more common after 60, and what warning signs can sometimes appear when that pressure is high enough to start stressing the brain, the eyes, the heart, the lungs, and the blood vessels themselves. In other words, these signs are not random, they are clues. They are the body's way of saying that pressure may no longer be staying quietly in the background. And once you understand the pattern, these signs stop feeling like a scary list and start making biological sense. So let's build this from the ground up. Your arteries are not rigid plumbing. They are living tissue. They are elastic, muscular, responsive tubes that expand and recoil with every heartbeat. When you are younger, that elasticity helps cushion the force of blood leaving the heart. But with age, the large arteries, especially the aorta, tend to stiffen. They do not stretch as easily. That means the same heartbeat creates more pressure against the vessel wall. Now add years of salt sensitivity, stress, sleep problems, inactivity, genetics, extra body weight, kidney changes, or just the gradual wear of time, and you begin to understand why blood pressure rises so easily in later life. Here is the important part though. High blood pressure usually causes no symptoms at all. None. That is why people can live with it for years and never know. But when symptoms do show up, especially if they are new, sudden, or happening together, the reason is often that the pressure is beginning to affect organs that are extremely sensitive to blood flow and oxygen balance. The brain is sensitive, the eyes are sensitive, the heart is sensitive, the kidneys are sensitive, the lungs are sensitive, and that brings us to the warning signs. The first warning sign is a severe or unusual headache. Not every headache is about blood pressure. Most are not. Tension headaches are common. Dehydration can do it. Poor sleep can do it. Neck strain can do it. But when blood pressure becomes severely elevated, some people experience a sudden strong headache that feels different from their normal pattern. Why would that happen? Because the blood vessels in the brain are not designed to tolerate extreme pressure forever without reacting. When pressure climbs high enough, the brain's finely tuned circulation can become stressed. The vessels constrict, the surrounding tissues react, and you can end up with a headache that feels sharper, heavier, or more alarming than the kind you can explain away with a bad pillow or a missed cup of coffee. A lot of people especially notice this in the morning and immediately blame sleep. And sometimes it is sleep. But if a severe headache is recurring, unusual, or showing up alongside other symptoms we're about to talk about, that is not something to shrug off. Warning sign number 2 is blurred vision, double vision, or a sudden change in vision. This one makes perfect sense once you think about how delicate the eye really is. Inside the eye are tiny blood vessels that need stable pressure. Not low pressure, not extreme pressure, stable pressure. When blood pressure stays high over time, it can damage those vessels. When it rises severely, vision can suddenly become blurry, dim, doubled, or just wrong in a way that feels hard to describe. And I think this is one of the most overlooked signs in older adults because it is so easy to blame the eyes themselves. People think, well, I'm over 60, my glasses prescription probably changed. Maybe I'm just tired. Maybe the room is too bright. Maybe I looked at my phone too long. But there is a difference between normal visual aging and a sudden shift that feels new. Your body does not care whether you explain it away. If blood flow to the retina or the visual pathways is under stress, your vision may be one of the first places you notice it. Warning sign number 3 is shortness of breath. And this is where high blood pressure stops being an abstract number and starts becoming mechanical. Your heart pumps against pressure. That is literally what it does. So when the pressure in the arteries is chronically high, the heart has to push harder to move blood forward. Over time, that strain can affect how efficiently the heart fills and pumps. And when that begins to happen, fluid can back up where you do not want it backing up, especially toward the lungs. That is when walking across a room, climbing a few stairs, or doing some light morning activity can suddenly feel more effortful than it should. Not because you are out of shape in a vague sense, but because the heart and lungs are dealing with a pressure problem upstream. Again, shortness of breath has many possible causes. That is exactly why it gets missed. People blame age. They blame being tired. They blame the weather. But when breathing feels harder than it should, the body is telling you that something physical is demanding extra work. Warning sign number 4 is chest pain, pressure, tightness, or heaviness. I want to slow down here because this one matters. Your heart muscle needs oxygen every second of your life. It gets that oxygen through coronary arteries. When blood pressure stays high, it damages artery walls, accelerates stiffening, and forces the heart to work harder at the same time. That is a bad combination. Higher workload, less forgiving vessels, more strain. And the feeling this can create is not always dramatic movie scene chest pain. Sometimes it is pressure. Sometimes it is a squeezing sensation. Sometimes it is a heaviness that comes and goes. Sometimes it feels like discomfort spreading into the arm, jaw, neck, back, or upper stomach. This is one of the reasons high blood pressure becomes more dangerous with age. It rarely acts alone. It often shares the stage with narrowed arteries, heart enlargement, rhythm problems, or long-term vascular wear. So when people think of blood pressure as just a number on a machine, they miss the real story. That number is a reflection of force, and force over time changes tissue. Warning sign number 5 is dizziness, lightheadedness, or feeling unsteady. This is another one older adults often normalize. They say, maybe I stood up too fast, maybe I didn't eat enough, maybe I'm just getting older. And yes, sometimes it is something simple. But dizziness is also one of those signs that can appear when circulation to the brain is being affected, when the heart is under stress, or when blood pressure is fluctuating in a way the body is not handling well. The brain is extremely demanding tissue. It wants steady delivery, not chaos, not extremes. So when pressure is too high, or when the body is reacting to that pressure, balance and orientation can start to feel off. And once that happens after 60, the stakes are higher than people realize. Because now you're not only talking about a possible pressure problem, you're talking about fall risk, confusion, delayed reaction time, and the kind of instability that can change someone's independence very quickly. Warning sign number 6 is sudden confusion, trouble thinking clearly, or difficulty speaking. This is where the brain enters the conversation more directly. When blood pressure reaches dangerous levels, it can interfere with the brain's normal function. That may show up as confusion, mental fog that arrives out of nowhere, trouble finding words, slurred speech, or the strange feeling that your thoughts are not lining up correctly. And this matters because people often imagine stroke-like symptoms as huge and obvious. Sometimes they are, sometimes they are not. Sometimes the first thing someone notices is that the person does not sound like themselves. Their words slow down, their sentence breaks halfway through, their face changes subtly, their response time changes. That is not just forgetfulness, that is not normal aging. That is the brain under possible vascular stress. Warning sign number 7 is numbness or weakness, especially on one side of the body. This sign belongs in the same serious category because it can reflect impaired blood flow to the brain or a blood pressure emergency that is beginning to affect the nervous system. A hand that suddenly feels weak, a leg that does not move the way it should, numbness in the arm, a drooping feeling in the face. These are not symptoms to sit with and observe for the rest of the afternoon. And here is what makes this so important in older adults. After 60, people often have a habit of minimizing physical changes because they've lived through so many small aches and weird sensations that turned out to be nothing. That experience can be useful. It can also be dangerous because the body condition that most often causes no warning can become catastrophic the moment the nervous system gets involved. Warning sign number 8 is unusual nosebleeds. Now, this is where I want to be precise. Nosebleeds are not a reliable everyday sign of routine high blood pressure. Dry air can cause them, nose irritation can cause them, medications can contribute. So, I do not want to oversell this, but recurrent or sudden nosebleeds can sometimes appear when blood pressure is very high, especially when they show up with headaches, dizziness, or other symptoms on this list. Why? Because the blood vessels inside the nose are tiny and fragile. Under severe pressure, fragile vessels are exactly the kind that can give way first. So this is not the kind of sign you isolate and turn into a diagnosis by itself. It is the kind of sign you place into context. That is the word I want you to keep in mind through this whole video. Context. One symptom alone can mislead you. A cluster of symptoms tells a better story. And warning sign number 9 is sudden pain in the chest, back, or abdomen that feels severe or out of proportion. This one surprises people, but it should not. The major arteries in the body run through the chest and abdomen. If pressure becomes extremely high, those vessels are under enormous mechanical stress. Severe pain in the chest or back is not just pain. In some cases, it can be the kind of vascular warning that health professionals take very seriously because it may point to a dangerous event involving the heart or the aorta. This is one of the most important ideas in the entire video. High blood pressure is not only about the blood. It is about the vessel walls containing that blood. And when force rises fast enough or long enough, the wall itself can become the problem. Now, if you step back and look at all 9 signs together, a pattern starts to appear. Headache, vision change, confusion, weakness, trouble speaking. That is the brain and eyes. Shortness of breath, chest pressure, severe chest or back pain. That is the heart, lungs, and major vessels. Dizziness, nosebleeds. That is the body struggling with pressure in smaller, more sensitive systems. And that is why these symptoms matter. They are not random annoyances floating around the body for no reason. They are the downstream consequences of pressure touching tissues that do not tolerate being pushed too hard. But I need to say something equally important. The biggest reason high blood pressure is dangerous is not that it causes symptoms. It is that it usually does not. That is the part people miss. A person can be over 60, feel reasonably well, go about their routine, read the news, make breakfast, do some gardening, talk to the neighbors, and still have blood pressure that is quietly damaging the eyes, kidneys, arteries, and heart with absolutely no warning at all. That is why blood pressure is measured, not guessed. You do not detect it by intuition. You do not detect it by personality. You do not detect it because you would feel it if something were wrong. Biology does not make that promise. And I think that is what makes this topic so powerful. The body is incredibly intelligent, but it is not theatrical. It does not always make danger feel dramatic. Sometimes it makes danger feel ordinary. A mild blur in vision, a little breathlessness on the stairs, a strange, heavy headache, a sense that your balance is not quite right, a moment of not getting your words out correctly. These things are easy to wave away one by one, but they become much harder to ignore once you understand what system they all belong to. They belong to circulation. They belong to vessel stress. They belong to organs asking for stable blood flow and not getting it. And if you are over 60, this is not fear-based information. It is pattern recognition. The goal is not to make you anxious every time you get a headache. The goal is to make you literate in your own physiology. Because the more you understand the language of the body, the less likely you are to dismiss a real warning when it finally appears. Let me close with this. There is something almost paradoxical about high blood pressure. It is common, often silent, and deeply serious, all at the same time. It can spend years in the background doing damage quietly, but when the body does decide to speak, it often speaks through the brain, the eyes, the chest, the breath, and the balance of the body itself. That is the pattern to remember: a severe headache that feels wrong, blurred or suddenly changing vision, shortness of breath, chest pain or pressure, dizziness or unsteadiness, confusion or trouble speaking, weakness or numbness, unusual nosebleeds, severe chest, back, or abdominal pain. Not because every one of these signs automatically means high blood pressure, but because together they tell you what dangerously elevated pressure can start to look like when organs are under strain. And once you know that, you stop thinking of blood pressure as just a number on a screen. You start seeing it for what it really is: a force problem, a vessel problem, a whole body problem. And after 60, that knowledge matters more, not less. So if this video helped you understand high blood pressure in a clearer way, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you want, leave a